Welcome everybody to this webinar about conversational AI and large language models. My name is Halvard Totland. I'm the CPO here at boost.ai, and with me today is our founder, Lars Selsås. And today we would like to update you a bit about what our team is doing around LLMs and how that can be utilized in enterprises with the level of control that we believe that enterprises really need to be able to utilize it to the fullest. We will talk about many features that we're now releasing and also putting them into perspective of who's it actually helping. Is it helping the employees who's building the virtual agents, the agents in the contact center, or the end customers directly? So Lars, would you like to talk a bit about LLMs and how that's affecting us?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's just really cool everything happening now. With LLMs now, there's opening up a kind of whole new space of things we can do. They're not perfect, they make mistakes, they need to be managed, but I think they really open up for a lot of interesting opportunities. And we're going to talk more about how we can utilize them in a controlled way for an enterprise to deliver really good value.
Yep. And I think kind of that keeping the control, because we have all seen kind of all of the examples out there where they make horrible mistakes or something, but still it's so extremely impressive what they can do in delivering long human-like conversations that really changed a lot in the field of conversational AI.
Yeah, and as you can see here, we have made a pretty cool kind of setup for how we evaluate them, where we kind of look at it as risk as one aspect, where you kind of have liability, security, user experience, and also other factors. And then you have on the other axis, you have value, where you kind of have time spent, autonomy, but also user experience. So it's kind of interesting that user experience is actually on both axes because it can really help improve it, but it can also make it horrible if it makes mistakes. So I think that combination here is very cool to see, what is the relationship of risk and value with different features.
Yep. And I think kind of to put this into perspective, so a lot of our clients are really big enterprises, right? So when you're a smaller company, maybe a startup, you can afford to make a bit of mistakes. You're working with growth hacking, you're working with a lot of different things that really you try to utilize everything to the fullest, and user experience or the liability and so on might be things you're willing to take a bit higher risks on. But when you're in that enterprise setting, the liability you have if you're answering something completely wrong to a client is so much riskier for a bank, for instance, versus a small startup that's kind of just experimenting with some technology.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I kind of like to split it into kind of two kind of main problems with LLMs. Of course, one is that it might say the wrong thing, which is maybe the most dangerous one. And the other one is just it doesn't necessarily automatically have access to the information you want it to have, so not the correct information.
Yep.
And we're going to dive a little bit more into those details, kind of when we continue now to go through some of the features. Do you want to go ahead and dive into them?
Sure. So as I said briefly, we're going to talk about all of the features that we're both working on now, but also is under release. And we've split them into these three categories. And it's really the AI trainer efficiency. So AI trainer is the term we use for everybody who's building and managing a virtual agent. Of course, the agent in the contact center, those who help the clients, but might get augmentation from a bot and really get superpowers in terms of speed, in terms of quality, searching in different knowledge directories and so on. And then, of course, the most interesting one, can LLMs be used directly to end customers? And if so, what measurements do we need to take to make that something which is not just something that is in the near future, but it can actually be used very, very soon. So the first thing we would like to discuss with you today is the training data suggestions, because it's a very logical feature to implement. So when you're starting out with several hundred intents, and our models can go up to several thousand intents. And for all of these intents, you need to provide training data to the model. So you need to provide 10, maybe 20 examples of how users might utter themselves or explain themselves to get to that specific intent. And until now, you have had to be quite creative when doing that and actually writing in many different training samples. But with this new setup, you basically only add one training sentence, and then you get a lot of suggestions back from the LLM. And that's kind of, it's a very logical feature, quite a quick feature to implement for us, but it has enormous improvements on the user experience for the employees who are actually building this. And I think it just makes their workday much better.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing feature, and I think this one is, in itself pretty cool, but also in combination with everything else, how much this kind of allows us to go at scale. Because I think with this, you're going to just want more and more scale. You're going to get running quicker, and you can handle more and more traffic. So I think this is what also kind of indirectly increases customer satisfaction, just because you can handle more scale, you can get a much more knowledgeable robot.
Yep. And kind of if we take this into the risk value axis here.
Yeah, I think this one is interesting because, it's pretty low risk, especially here you kind of have the human approval. I guess the main risk is that you kind of mess up your model if you start accepting kind of bad data. But the value is also pretty high. It's not like all the way up there, but it's pretty good, and it's a really nice feature.
Yep. And just kind of why we also say that the risk is very low is that this is not anything that will be made available to anybody else outside the organization. It is primarily made for training. It doesn't contain any personal identifiable information. So in all, it's a very low security risk, very low liability risk. It just saves you a lot of time. And the next feature we would like to go through is when the work that the AI trainer is actually doing when they're creating the reply. So imagine you have created an intent, you have added a lot of training data, so the model is able to predict to that intent. Then you're about to write the answer back to the customer on the other side.
I think what's interesting here is that very often when you're an AI trainer, you're trying to build good answers. It's kind of hard to write good text sometimes, but here you can maybe just put in the facts more or less, and you say, make this friendly. Make this, whatever format you want it.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice that you don't have to, come with the first draft of like a nice text. You can just kind of put in the facts. And of course, you can edit what the AI has given you, but it's often much more easy to get a suggestion that's nice and then work with it than to kind of make up your own every time.
Yep. And just kind of for myself, finding the right words might be a bit tricky, especially kind of late in the day.
Yeah.
So just being able to write the factual correct thing and then getting suggestions on how you can formalize that in a better way. I think it's a very small thing, but it's very it's very convenient.
Absolutely.
And again, kind of if we're placing this into the axis here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty low risk. You have a human in the loop here. They are checking that the answer is correct. There is a small chance that the AI will kind of make the text incorrect when it tries to modify it. But since this is only on the AI trainer side with the human in the loop, we consider the risk quite low because the human should then be able to detect mistakes.
I agree. And the next feature is the Handover Summary. So this is, of course, when you're in a contact center environment. You're an agent and you're getting a conversation from the bot. And the bot has had a conversation previously then with an end customer. And it might have been a kind of a multi-turn dialogue where the human has tried different ways to get answers from the bot. It might be a transactional flow where you haven't really connected the API, so you need to transfer to a human to actually do this flow. And when a human takes over that conversation in a contact center, they would need to go and read through the dialogue. But with this feature, we can basically just summarize everything that the customer has said and also what the bot has replied into a very small summarized text that the agent can then read before interacting with the human. So just again, it reduces the time the agent need to actually put themselves into the conversation and help the end user.
Yeah, I think it's a great feature, and I think there might be also other use cases for that summary. I know some industries you have to store a summary after a dialogue. Maybe you can use it to automate that. So I think it's just really nice, simple solution for a problem.
Yep. And again?
Yeah, pretty low risk. We are not showing the summary to the end user, so it's only for the agent. So if it would say something wrong, then it wouldn't be that horrible. So we think it's fairly low risk but reasonable high value.
Yep. And then also kind of a bit of a different take on a feature we just discussed. So we showed you the AI trainer's possibility to rewrite their replies back from the bot. But it's the exact same scenario when an AI trainer, an agent in the call center is kind of at the end of their shift. Their imagination is kind of lacking a bit, and they might be struggling to juggle many conversations. And then just being able then to formalize the factually correct thing, but getting it reformalized or rewritten in it might be a shorter version, a longer version, or more or less formal. Again, something that is it plainly just makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar feature to the one that's in the admin panel, but very useful, and again, pretty low risk, because you have that agent in the loop that verifies the content.
Yep. Here we're actually seeing a conversation that the end user had with the bot, and then it's summarized for the agent in the call center. And of course we have canned responses, which is just pretty much pre-made responses. So when you press in forward dash in the input field for the agent, they get a list of predefined answers. But those are pretty much hard coded, right? So it will be the same answer every time. But with this feature, they're actually contextualized. So they actually use the summary of what the AI actually summarized the conversation between the end user and the bot. And then it gives an introduction or a greeting from the agent to the user, where they actually highlight what the conversation with the bot was about. So you get a much smoother opening of the dialogue, and it also saves quite a lot of time in that opening period of a conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a really good feature, and I think the risk does increase a little bit here because you have a lot of elements going on, and you have a kind of an agent in the loop real time. So I think the odds of them making a mistake here is slightly bigger. They got to kind of fact check the answer towards the source that we're showing them and make sure everything is right, but I think still acceptable risk level. Acceptable,
and it will just decrease with extra levels of confidence that we put on top. Yeah. So I think it's a perfectly acceptable risk level also for enterprises.
Yeah.
And then over to the really, really interesting stuff, Lars.
Yeah, I think this one's really cool. I mean, we spent a lot of time now kind of really finding ways to solve the first problem of LLMs, which is like it's not connected to the right data. And of course, the other use cases we're showing a lot of them are based on just taking data easily available, emerging with an LLM. But here we're now able to connect an LLM to your website or potentially other data sources, where you could then talk directly to the web page and get kind of that contextualized answer just to your question, which I think is really cool. But of course, this one has a lot more risk. I guess we're going to go into the risk even more after you've shown a little bit of a demo. So I don't know, do you want to dive into the demo?
Yeah, I just want to kind of add on that kind of the question we get in every meeting now is, okay, why can't we just use ChatGPT directly? And first of all, it's not possible to use ChatGPT directly. The foundational models underneath ChatGPT, so being GPT-3, those are available. But there are, of course, enormous risks in terms of liability if you just let it loose, right? It's a general artificial intelligence, so it's trained on basically everything on the internet. And of course, when you as an enterprise would like to have a bot, you don't want it to answer just on the general knowledge of the internet, but you want to answer it on behalf of your organization, right? And we have done a lot of work over the last couple of years to build the Boost Automator. The Boost Automator is really a tool to connect to different knowledge sources and make those available for the virtual agent. So, for instance, to build intents, build training data, build content, and so on. But now using generative AI, we can actually then create a lot better intents, a lot better training data, but best of all, we can create the answers a lot better. But it needs to be controlled. As we stated kind of in the beginning, the biggest barrier of taking generative AI into production today is the level of control. And you can, of course, just connect it to a data source, but what we've built on top in terms of mitigating those risks are what's really, really interesting. And we would like to use a bit of time on this, because this is basically where we believe the future of conversational AI is, using the generative powers of LLMs with company knowledge, right? Connecting it so an enterprise can be confident with the answers given by the bot in a way that they use less time on manual work and more time on building the transactional flows that really increases the automation rate. And we're so lucky that we got approval from one of our clients. It's Michigan State University Federal Credit Union. And imagine that we start with their website. So they have a quite extensive website, and we have the tool which we call the Automator, or the Boost Automator. And the Boost Automator is a tool where we can connect all of the different data sources that the clients has. It might be their website, it might be their knowledge base, it might be documents, or whichever knowledge source they have available. And what we can do in the Boost Automator is really taking that content. We can, when you define it, so in this scenario, you just define a URL to the company. So you plot in the domain name, and then we do a search on top of that domain, and we find all the pages that are available. But for a virtual agent, you might not want to use all of the content you have on your website. You might have a lot of old news articles, for instance, about sections or other areas of the website that is really not that interesting for a conversational AI bot. So you define your scope, you include the pages that you want to include, and you exclude all of the others. And when you've done that, we will then go through and we will gather all of that content. And then we will make sure that we store it in a way so it's dynamic, that we can sync to that content. We can schedule it, we can update it, so you don't need to do all of the manual work. And we believe that when we set up that connection and we curate all of that content for the purpose of a conversational AI bot, then we really have a strong foundation to go in and use that information with an LLM to generate the answer suggestion, but not only generate the answer suggestion, but actually fact-checking it, right? And I think kind of that fact-checking approach is something we will, of course, come a bit back to afterwards. But let us just show you now that when we connect this website, the msufcu.org, up to the conversational LLM bot, what it actually means. So when we've just gathered all of the content, we basically go into here the demo section now, and we can just take a couple of questions. So, okay, in this scenario, I would like to reset my PIN code or change my PIN code on my debit card. And what we do is that we then search the entire website that we've included in our scope. We find the knowledge source there on the right side. And when we've found that source, we then send the important content to the LLMs, and we get an answer suggestion back. And then we fact check it. And then in this scenario, you can see just the example of where we're actually getting the data from. I'd just like to show you some different examples here. So, okay, can I get a debit card for my child, right? Something that the website says something about. And it's a frequently asked question in the bot. And again, it finds the dollar dog program here for MSU-FCU. You can see here again where it finds all of the content related to the age a child need to be to get the card, how the account will be set up, and it just provides a very direct answer to that user question. So even if, yeah, you're able to find the content on the website, but we know that a lot of people are struggling to actually do that. And that's why they end up calling or emailing or sending a ticket or actually going to a branch and getting that sorted out. We just believe that when you do all of this with a conversational AI bot, you save so much time. And you can then use your human agents to really the more important tasks, but the harder tasks to solve. The things that might need it might be legacy systems, it might be other things that are not easily integratable. Yeah, but of course, this comes with quite a high risk, right? Because here you're actually giving answers directly back to your end users. So can you just tell us a bit about how we're actually tackling that risk level?
Yeah, so we've done a huge amount of work here. Of course, we see that the LLMs, they make quite some mistakes. They will just invent information. They will sometimes misinterpret information that's already there. But they also ignore commands. So if you tell them like, do like this and don't do like this, sometimes it will just ignore that. So any command you give them is not like a firm command, it's a soft command, meaning that hopefully it will do what you said, but maybe it doesn't. So that's also quite interesting. So you definitely need some protection on top. We have actually made our own kind of function to detect kind of hallucinations and bad things happening. The easiest mistakes to detect is kind of when you start talking about stuff that's not available in the source or the question. And that's really what we focus the most on, is to detect when it kind of starts inventing new information, because that's the easiest part to detect. Of course, detecting when it misinterprets what's already there is significantly more difficult. And we are looking more into how we can do that. But we have a pretty cool function now, and we're able to remove a lot of the issues when it misinterprets or it invents new information that's not already there. Like if you ask it for like, what are the opening hours for a bank, and there's a page that just says opening hours with no times, it might just say, it's 8 to 16 on Mondays. And that's not, it didn't get it from anywhere, it just invented it. So those things are very important to capture.
Yep.
But we're also seeing that we are kind of quite far away from using this directly with an end user. I think even with a lot of experimentation, a lot of safeguards in place, I think the risk is probably too high for most industries and companies, at the moment at least. But for content suggestion in the admin panel, agent assist variations where you have an agent in the loop, I think it's great and it's really ready to be used. And the cool part is you don't have to train this bot. You're just given the web page, as Halvard showed. You just define, what is the scope, and then it works.
Yep.
And we spent a lot of time on this technology also. We are using, for example, embeddings and so on here. But we're also seeing that to get a really good search, you need to do a lot more than just embeddings or something simple. So we're also seeing that to make the more advanced features here work really well, it takes a lot of effort. And we're combining, the embeddings with our own technology, with our object graph understanding, all of this to make a much better search. Because really finding the right information is kind of essential to using LLMs well. And what you really use LLMs for is to not really to get the knowledge, but for the intelligence. So you have the question, and then you have the information source, and you're really using the LLM's intelligence to merge those together to answer the question very specifically based on the information source, so that you don't have to print way more info than you need and to customize the answer.
Yeah, I think kind of with using LLMs directly to your end customers, that really kind of is a question of how risk averse you are as an organization. And most enterprises, especially kind of in financial services or public sector, they need to be sure that the answers they're giving are correct. And it's extremely bad for them if they're not. But of course, this represents a major technology and customer experience opportunity that we just really see that, okay, the risk as of now might be a bit too high, that you would like to go straight into production and say that, okay, I want to use this for all end users today. But still kind of, if we take the right risk mitigation efforts, we can put it into a format that kind of puts a human in the loop, and then you're really able to use a lot of that power already today. And that's kind of where we would like to show you some examples now of how we can actually do that. And as you saw in the previous example, we had the answers given directly to the end users when given a question. But really where we see it possible is to say that, okay, as long as a human does or a representative of your organization goes through that content before it actually ends up with the end user, then you have the power to say that, okay, this is actually good enough. And if you get an answer suggestion where you're seeing that, okay, this is not correct, okay, you just go in and correct it, you save it once, and then sync it basically to that knowledge source, and saying that, okay, you might have put in the interest rate for a specific car loan or the annual fees for a specific credit card. And you know that that's kind of, if you combine all of those kind of knowledge elements, there will be thousands in a conversational AI bot, if you especially have a broad scope one. And it's kind of a nightmare to go in and update those manually and make sure that you're synced with the business unit, with the marketing team, and everybody who has some relation to that knowledge element. And what's great now with the answer suggestion you can get from the bot and the knowledge sync part is you can basically say that, okay, when I've written now this answer, and it states that the interest rate for this specific car loan starts at 3.4%. You can say that, okay, just sync it to this specific website where this information is stated, and whenever somebody, for instance, in the marketing team goes in and changes that information, you will get a notification as an AI trainer. Without the marketing or the website people needing to do anything. They just change the content when they want to, and the bot will be synced. which is really, really great in terms of having full control over all your content at once.
Yeah. I think what's really cool if you think about this, okay, you're getting your training data almost for free, you're getting your content in almost for free, you're getting your content synced almost for free. What does that mean? It means crazy scale. And I think this means you then get controlled dialogue with your customers where you're in control, but you can easily scale it to a massive domain.
Yep.
So you can build up huge amount of knowledge. You can handle all of the edge cases to a much larger extent. So I think this technology is going to mean way more scale. And then, of course, it's going to be extremely important that you have a platform that's really built for scale, because it doesn't really make the core platform smarter. It really helps you put all the data in and maintain it much better. But still, the core platform needs to take care of processing everything and making sure it works at scale. So I think that's going to be a key element going forward for the industry.
Absolutely. And what we've seen kind of, or everybody that has kind of been playing around with if it's ChatGPT or GPT-3 or any of the other LLMs out there, is basically that you don't get the same answer every time. But in this scenario where you take it back and actually create it into intents and you create it into actions or answers that are synced to the website, you're in full control. So if a question or a customer goes in one day and asks, what is the interest rate for the specific car loan, if that hasn't actually changed and you have made a decision to change it, it will answer the same thing an hour later or a day later or a week later. And I think that's kind of the level of enterprise control you need to have to be able to have such a service out to your customers. And what we basically see here with the content suggestion part. So imagine that, or just visualize what we showed you earlier, where the customer asked directly to a chat interface and got the answer back from the LLM. In this scenario, it's actually the AI trainer. So imagine you have 1,000 intents, different topics that you can ask your virtual agent about, and then needing to go through and create all of those answers manually. It's quite time consuming. But in this scenario, you have your intent name and you just click here on create new content, you click on content suggestion, you type in basically the question that a user might have on that type of intent. And then we search the website, we find the right content, we use the LLM to create the best possible answer, and that's presented to the AI trainer. And then they can choose to use it just as it is, or go in and change it to the style or tone for your company, or if there are details in there that might not be correct, the other corpus of that answer might be perfect. So really it's super time consuming, or time effective, and it just changes a lot of what a conversational designer or an AI trainer or how you kind of phrase that specific role. We take away a lot of the manual work and make you more into a subject matter expert or a controller that can go in and actually approve content rather than building it from scratch. And with all of this, we really believe that we have kind of mitigated the risk quite a lot, haven't we?
Yeah, I think the risk level here is pretty acceptable because of the human in the loop. And I think that's kind of the recurring theme. Once you kind of have the human in the loop on the answers, it becomes, quite acceptable on the risk level. But once you kind of go towards the end user, then, the risk level increases significantly.
Yep.
But we do see this kind of slightly more risk than, since you have the answer and there is a human that needs to approve that. So it's not totally on the left, but very acceptable risk level for an extremely useful feature.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we've showed quite a lot of different features here today. Some for the AI trainer, some for the agent in the call center, and some directly to end customers. So we'll just try to summarize them here, kind of on different parts of the graph here. So the kind of for the human agent, it will be the contextual pre-written responses. It will be the handover summary, the ability to rewrite what they're saying to the user. For the AI trainer, it will be kind of removing the hurdle of writing training data from scratch. It will be kind of answer rewrite, where you basically rewrite the answer you were supposed to give to the user. and also the LLM-enabled chat, which is currently in beta now, and we would really love for all that are interested in this to reach out to us. And we've launched now a website where we've summarized everything that we've shown you today. So if you go into boost.ai/LLM, there you will see every feature, all of the animations, everything that we have here. And also in the end, you have a sign-up form where you can actually sign up to get a personalized demo for your company. So we will show you basically what we showed with MSU FCU, and we can show you the positives and negatives of using LLMs directly to end customers, but also what it can mean for you in terms of the speed of building a more controlled, enterprise-friendly virtual agent for your company. Anything you would like to add to that?
I think this is just really fun, amazing future ahead now with everything happening. And I think just to summarize this, like you got to look at the risk. I mean, there's kind of no free lunch on some of this stuff. You got to accept the risk involved. You got to consider what kind of risk are you willing to take. And we try to summarize the risk a little bit to give you some idea of our impression on a simple level. But more than anything, this just means a lot more abilities. But also looking at how much more you can do at scale at very low risk is very interesting. And also, when you start with the lower risk, you start with kind of the AI giving you text that a human first approves. You also start building up experience. You know, what kind of mistakes does it make? Look into when is it ready. So I think it's also a very nice stepping stone because we're also thinking about the future at the same time as we want to build something that's really useful now. And I think that combination of giving you a lot of value now where you can get the content for free, everything now, but you're saying maybe it makes some mistakes initially, but once you use it more and more over time, maybe at some point you say, the mistakes are so few now that we would like to maybe go live with this directly with the end user at some point. So I think kind of building for the future and the current at the same time is a really core part of our strategy here.
Oh yeah. And this is basically just some of the feature that you can expect to get within the next few weeks, and also our roadmap is filled with a lot of other cool stuff around LLM. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.